Hello and welcome to the Osceola.com's Seminole Sidelines. My name is Nick Carlisle, staff writer and recruiting writer for the Osceola.com, joined as always by head editor Bob Ferrante on a Monday that is a couple of days removed from what feels like the beginning to a very slow end to Mike Norvell's tenure as a Florida State head football coach. And it's crazy to me, Bob, that there are multiple points in his 6-year tenure at Florida State where we could have said such a statement. 0-4 to start that 2021 season. That 3-game skid in 2022 where you start questioning whether or not he's the guy. He rattles off a perfect record down the stretch of that season. You definitely were saying it at 2-10, and you said it probably every single week as that team started 1-3 over the course of its first 4 games. And here we are again, Florida State losing 3 straight ACC games, has not won a conference game in a full calendar year, Bob Ferrante. And I think it's certainly not the most concerning thing that we have to talk about today, but you can't just turn the page anymore. You have the benefit of saying, okay, you take a tough Friday night loss at Virginia, close game, double overtime. You didn't play well. You should have won that game. You didn't. Okay, but you got another opponent coming in next week in arch rival Miami that you need to be prepared for. You know guys are going to get up for that game. You get your ass kicked at home, and I don't care what the final score says. You get your butt kicked at home, and then you say, well, we can turn the page to Pitt, because that becomes the most important game in Mike Norvell's tenure. And then you get to that game on Saturday. You enter halftime with a 21-14 lead after a miraculous Hail Mary pass that wasn't really a Hail Mary, but somebody's prayers were definitely answered as Tommy Castellanos, the contortionist, threw that bomb to Landon Thomas with his body half contorted towards the sideline. You take a 21-14 lead into halftime. Pat Narduzzi gives you a gift with a penalty that gives you great field position to open your second half drive. And Florida State just pissed down their legs for the entirety of the remainder of that football game. Florida State has allowed 91 points in the last 3 games. And now we are sitting here once again, as I said in the opening seconds of this Seminole Sidelines on this Monday, we are in an inflection point that feels like it is the beginning of the end of the Mike Norvell tenure in Tallahassee, barring a miraculous turnaround. And even then, there is so much goodwill that has eroded over the past 3 weeks. There is so much goodwill that continues to erode passively with the fact that, and I'm going to steal this stat from Corey Clark at War Chant, so hat tip to you, good sir, that Mike Norvell has 6 of the program's 10 3-game losing streaks since 1981.
Ouch.
When you lay it all out, Bob Ferrante, there is a very diminishing amount of people and thoughts and hope and goodwill that you can have that Mike Norvell is the right person for this job. And that hurts to say from a personal standpoint, because I think you and I both agree that inside the building and in terms of the interpersonal relationships that Mike has with the players, with the coaches, with the media, he's done a very good job. He does a lot of things right inside the building. It's on the football field that the results have been so up and down to the point where, again, we are talking about the results on the field and not about the ACC title that feels like it was 2 decades ago, but it was really 2 years ago. And as I was alluding to, now we can't turn the page to Stanford. And it's not like that's not an important game, because it absolutely is an important game. Bob, I would imagine if Mike Norvell goes to the West Coast and loses to Stanford at a 10:30 kick on a Saturday night, that he's not coming back on the plane. I would have to imagine there you get a bye week that makes 4 straight losses, and Stanford is putrid on the football field this season without a head coach, or excuse me, with an interim head coach. So now all that we can talk about, and all that we can surmise, and all that we can go back and forth, and I'll quit yapping in a moment, is the conversation that everybody on this Florida State beat is having today, and will have not only today, but through the rest of this week, and not only through the rest of this week, but for the rest of the season. That $53 million buyout, is it worth it? Are you going to, is it worth it to fire him now? Or are you comfortable keeping that buyout to where it is and losing money passively over the next couple of seasons as fan interest, donor fatigue grows? Where are you feeling on this Monday afternoon, Bob Ferranti, with everything that I just threw at you? And you don't see me get hot very often, but I'm out on Mike Norvell for now. That was an inexcusable loss on Saturday. The floor is yours.
I think this is one discussion. Excuse me. If Mike Norvell's buyout is $13 million, it's one discussion. If it's $53 million, it's a completely different discussion. And Jerry Kutz's argument would be, pour the millions that you would pay Mike Norvell to sit out into a roster instead. My argument is, let's run the Oklahoma drill. And this is a different Oklahoma drill. This is the, let's make Brent Venables the best head coach he can be by going out and hiring a GM with NFL experience, with salary cap management experience, somebody who lives and breathes player analysis and player development. And that's Jim Nagy. He was an NFL scout for a long time. He ran the Senior Bowl for a long time. They went out and got him, and I think they paid him $750 or so thousand bucks, according to some published reports nationally. That's not a big paycheck to go out there and grab somebody. I've speculated Florida State should go out and get Martin Mayhew, recently retired former Florida State player, NFL player, has front office experience, Lions, I believe 49ers and Commanders. There are men like this out there, and they should be very popular around college head coaches who need help in terms of building programs. That is part of the long-term solution. I think, Nick, I think the short-term solution is you cannot improve this roster right now by the waiver wire. There's no trade deadline. You're stuck
with in the barn.
You're stuck with developing who you have in-house, and you've got some talent. There's not enough depth. I mean, we can agree position by position, aside from, I think, running back and DB, not a deep roster from top to bottom. Partly that's portal, partly that's recruiting and roster management. But I think you have to start with get some W's. And Stanford needs to be a W. The bye week needs to be a win as far as rest up, get your depth back. I want to see Deuce Robinson and Randy Pittman play and Micah Pettis play, but then I need to see them get a week off and get ready for the stretch run, right? So I think I looked at this schedule. This is the soft 2-game stretch. This is Stanford, bye, and Wake Forest. You need to make the most of these weeks. 2 wins, rest. I'd be curious if the tenor changes a little bit if you go to Clemson and pull off that win. Will Florida State be a favorite and underdog? Don't know, don't care. I'm just saying rivalry wins make head coaches and programs look really, really good. There are some short-term questions, leadership, accountability, who's going to rally the troops, what's the emotion day-to-day in practice, what's the mindset. Then I think there's the long-term questions, and you're absolutely right to be asking the big picture questions. At the end of the day, I keep coming back to $53 million is a massive amount of money that you can instead pour into players, player retention, player development, grab the best state of Florida, best state of Georgia high school prospects, like Usman Kroma is Exhibit A, and Kevin Wynn might be Exhibit B if he were not injured early on, right? Sure. You know, guys like that make you a better coach. And that's a kind of a coaching cliche, but it is for a reason. And I think you've got to do a better job long-term of building back this roster.
Two thoughts there. I think if you go and beat Clemson in Death Valley, I wonder what just how much goodwill that brings back to what feels like it's dipping into the negatives at this point. You see some of his staunchest reporters, or excuse me, supporters, and some staunch reporters too that may support Mike Norvell, um, starting to wave the white flag and say, we can't keep doing this anymore. You win at Clemson in Death Valley, and let's say you go ahead and beat Florida too, just to be on the optimistic side of things. Do you then danger yourself into getting into a similar situation that those Gators are in right now, to where you are having a head coach that is doing just enough on the football field and has just enough talent there to be able to keep his job, but the writing is on the wall and it's drop shadowed and outlined? Do you find, is there the danger of that happening? First of all, one. And I guess second of all, if we talked about the buyout money, and that buyout money is going to be there. It's not just going to go away. You have a team in Pennsylvania that just fired a coach that has had, what is it, 3 10-win seasons in a row. Now, sure, the reputation around James Franklin is that he couldn't win the big game, and that has been his reputation, and there has been no shaking of that reputation. But Penn State was on the verge of a national title berth, or was certainly in the conversation last season. He is out after 3 straight losses, and yes, you lost to UCLA, who was the perceived worst team in the country at the time. I guess my second question to follow that up with is, James Franklin didn't have an inexpensive buyout either. Do you think there's any stock in the fact that Florida State boosters and donors may take a look at that and say, hey, if they can do it, if they forked up the money, maybe we should do it too?
I think there are similarities. The differences being Penn State has Big Ten revenue distribution dollars. So eating almost 50 million bucks is very different at Penn State versus what Florida State would be doing, in addition to a new Doak Campbell Stadium renovation, in addition to a football operations building. And oh yeah, you might want to have 75 million bucks left over when it's time to bail from the ACC in 5 years. You have to think ahead as far as what's around the corner. And part of what's around the corner is paying your debt through football ticket sales, right? You have to have a football program that is fun to watch and people want to show up for. So I'm not just saying don't buy out Mike Norvell because it costs too much. The cost could be very high if this team goes south down the stretch and it doesn't look good for the ticket holder who has the option to renew in 26. I think these next 6 games are really important. None of them are ranked opponents. All of them are winnable. Florida State can win every single one of the next 6. They're not going to win all of them because Florida State makes mistakes and depth is significantly an issue, I think, especially with the offensive injuries, right? But I value rivalry wins in this discussion. I think the other discussion with 26 for Florida State is Alabama, Notre Dame, Florida, Clemson, and Miami are all on the schedule. And I don't care who you want. You can want Fran Brown. I know you like Fran Brown. I like Fran Brown. But whoever you bring in is going to have to face that schedule in 2026. And he may go 7-5. He may go 8-4. I mean, we're all kind of guessing what rosters look like and who the head coach and who the coordinators are. But man, that 26 schedule is a bear. So the cheaper solution is think that Florida State's going to turn this around on the field, develop some guys down the stretch. Oh yeah, use the bowl game. If you get bowl eligible, you get the bowl practices to continue developing players, right? That's a second spring. We can factor in a bowl
or a first spring if your Gus Malzahn.
And it's weird to say this because Florida State should have like built-in dudes and Jimmys and Joes, and this shouldn't be really a discussion. But yes, man, when you talk about 41-42 in ACC regular season play since 2015, we're talking about you've got to build the foundation. So I think Gus is the right guy as an offensive coordinator, right? I mean, they're scoring 30-plus points. They're running the ball. They have the scheme. They have the quarterback to fit. They have the runners. Can't fumble the ball, but they're doing it. we think Tony White is a guy who can develop a scheme and make this work. He's got to simplify it and dumb it down to make it work for the guys that he's got to run out there from a personnel standpoint. But the best possible solution for Florida State from the big picture, the long-term picture, is to win enough games to beat some rivals and then fix some of the player personnel issues. And again, I'm not saying let Derek Ray or anybody go. I'm not necessarily saying that. I am saying bring in some NFL guys who can work with you and make this thing function better as far as player evaluation, salary cap management. Salary cap is a thing, guys, in college football. We talked about this going back to pre-House NCAA settlement. You've got to take that into account as far as you've got money to spend. You've got NIL deals to make. Tommy Castellanos has a Powerade deal, right? You have to factor in all the money that's there. And I think NFL mindsets have it, whereas the college mindsets are still sort of catching up as far as the finances and how to allocate to this player, but maybe not allocate to that player. It's tough. It's tough. I think Mike Norvell needs some help. And this goes back to the Oklahoma discussion for me, Nick, is if you want to make Brent Venables better, you bring in Jim Nagy, the new OC and the quarterback. This is what Mike Norvell did. You bring in Gus, and Gus gets you Tommy. Now you got to get that GM piece and just make it right for the long term. There's a lot there. But I do think there is a roadmap to make these next couple of years the best they possibly can be. Not saying Florida State's in the playoff in 26 at all. That schedule's crazy. But you've got to take steps in that positive direction if you think Mike Norvell's your guy.
And I know that you're being nice about it, but there is a discussion to be had about Derek Ray and his general manager position in terms of the talent acquisition and just how good the evaluations have been from a recruiting standpoint and a transfer portal standpoint. I don't. If you fire Mike, you fire everybody. That's known. That's part of the discussion. But if you are keeping Mike at this point, I mean, who else is left for you to burn the bridge with or cut the cable for and leave the caboose behind on the train track other than maybe a Derek Ray or a John Papuchis, to where you say, okay, these are problematic areas of our football team here. We've upgraded a defensive coordinator. We've upgraded offensive coordinator. I know people are on Tony's ass right now, but I genuinely still have belief in Tony. I think he says all the right things. He has all the right passion. I just don't think he has any players, Bob. If we're being real about it, I don't think he has dudes. And specifically from the standpoint of saying, okay, what are Florida State's problem areas on the recruiting trail and what have they been for the past 2 years? Defensive end and linebacker. Oh, you can't get pressure with a 4-man or even a 5-man rush on a true freshman quarterback at home? I mean, it's not like Tony wasn't trying. Yeah, the 3-man rushes are a real pain when you see Daryl Jackson and then a Desir Twin and James Williams on the outside or whoever is lining up at that point. It's not like he's not trying, but you have deficiencies at defensive line to where you've had to bring in guys like Deontay McCray from a Western Kentucky who, yeah, he's had his moments, but it's not like he's Jared Verse out there. And obviously that's not a player comp that works either. I mean, Jared Verse is a man on his own. He's one of one. You have deficiency on the defensive line. You can't get a pass rush. And now it's on tape that your linebackers suck in coverage. So now they are being isolated. Elijah Herring's getting isolated. Blake Nicholson is getting toyed with. He played his worst game as a Seminole on Saturday, and I don't think it's even close, and he's had a lot of really freaking bad games. Your linebackers are getting isolated and burned in coverage, and if you are going to sit into zone, which is what this defense wants to do, you have to generate a pass rush, Bob. And they can't generate a pass rush. So that's why you have all these really infuriating circumstances where it's a down and distance, where it's an obvious passing situation. You try and bring 4 guys. They went 4 down a lot on Saturday. You try to generate pressure. You can't generate pressure. And you have guys that are able to hit the zone so easily. I think what you saw on defense, certainly there are guys that didn't play their best game. I thought Jerry Wilson played another really poor game, which he, curiously enough, has regressed rather ever since the first 3 games of the season. I wonder what's going on there. Maybe he's struggling with something. I don't know. But what you saw on Saturday was a product of really, really poor recruiting at defensive line, especially poor recruiting at linebacker. And apparently there's no transfer portal acquisition that can solve that. There are certainly any linebackers that you recruited out of the high school level that can solve that. It goes back to the article that I wrote last week, even before the Pitt game. At what point is Florida State's recruiting going to be able to come and save them, if at all? It's not easy. And to go back to what you were saying about this next year's schedule, who are you going to go get? Who are you going to go get that is going to understand that they do have that gauntlet to go through? And it's not like the ACC is the gauntlet of all gauntlets, but sure, there are some tough games there. Who are you going to go get to probably you're going to have to pay their buyout, and you're going to have to pay Norvell $53 million, and you're going to have to pay the buyout of all the coordinators that you just hired for likely 2-year deals. You are in such a rock and a hard place if you're Florida State, and it is so uncomfortable. You are getting squeezed, and there is no clear answer in sight. But unfortunately, if you keep losing, Bob, the way that you've been losing, the wolf is going to have to cut off its own leg to survive. And that's just a really uncomfortable conversation that we're going to have to start having.
And I think I hate to say the obvious. It starts with winning, and it starts with winning the games that you absolutely slam dunk need to be winning, like Stanford. Interim head coach, not very much talent because it really, all that talent went in the portal. Again, Frank Reich is a good NFL coach. He was hired on March 31st, and they started spring ball the next day. We talked to him at ACC kickoff in July. He was on a plane that night to start his practice for preseason camp the next day so that they could go out to Hawaii. And guess what? They went out to Hawaii and they lost.
Yeah.
Stanford's not a good team, okay? We don't have to break this down from an X and O standpoint. Florida State should go out there, overcome the jet lag and the body clock, all those issues, and win. Then you come back, take care of yourself in the bye week. Wake Forest, a first-year coach, win that one. And then you get into the Clemson scenario that I've been I'm toying with the scenario of Florida State at 5-3 after these 2 games, being healthy with Randy Pittman back, with Deuce Robinson back, guys who can help you downfield block, guys who can help make your passing game click. And that's what was missing in the second half against Pitt. We don't have to overanalyze it. You don't have Deuce Robinson. You don't have Randy Pittman. You can't block in the run game, and Tommy doesn't have as many guys he can trust. That's your conversation. And when you fumble around midfield, it's a momentum killer. So we can talk about turnovers and penalties, and you have to get your mojo back. And it starts with getting your mojo back against 2 really, really bad teams and kind of just feeling good about things and see how it goes forward. Look, I get it. The big picture, it sucks. Absolutely. I see it. Hey, our business at the Osceola would be great if Florida State were 5-1. If right, I mean, anything. You talk about media being homers. Business is great when the team wins, right?
It was great the first couple weeks of the season. That's for damn sure.
Absolutely, right? So there's no getting around a 3-game losing streak. Now, Mike Norvell kind of drew the 2022 comparison at the press conference and said, are there similarities there? Do we have, and I would question, because I think we've seen leadership and accountability from this roster, from enough guys on this roster. If they're up high enough to motivate in practices and in games, you're going to start to see that bounce back. And fans might say, well, it's just Stanford or it's just Wake. Well, it's a win. It still counts. You got to start somewhere. And what better spot to start and try to get down the road to Clemson and see what you can do up there.
You know what I'm going to say in response to that, though, right? It's why are we benchmarking Stanford and Wake Forest as wins that Florida State may or may not be able to win? And if they do, it's just a win. These are games that shouldn't even be thoughts on your schedule. I'm not saying overlook an ACC's caliber school, but it's Stanford who hardly has a head coach, they have a GM, really don't have a pulse on the football field, and you have Wake Forest that ever since Dave Clawson's team was ripped away from him, and obviously not there at this point, Wake Forest is not a world beater either. Like I think the cynical fan is going to say, And you and I, as those that went to Florida State as well, Florida State should not be in this conversation, and yet you consistently are. And I think that's kind of where a lot of the anger and resentment is coming from, which is we cannot keep getting ourselves into this situation again. You just can't. And you especially can't do that in year 6 of your tenure. There is a lot to be said for just how consistently inconsistent not only this coaching staff has been, but Norvell has been as a coach. And I know you're trying to be the optimist here, and clearly I'm the bad cop in this situation because I am horrendously frustrated with the football product that we saw on the field. But where is the silver lining, if anything? I know it comes down to, can you get wins on the football field? Where's the silver lining, Bob, if you can find it? Is it the fact that you that you beat Alabama to start the season, which seems like a fluke? And honestly, if we want to go back and talk about that just a little bit, I think it was a fluke in the sense that, hey, Alabama had no idea who or what they were scheming for, and you came out with juice and you beat and you were the better team on that day. You beat them, you know. But now that you have things on film, you have all of these offensive and defensive coordinators that are just going to beat the brakes off of you. And granted, I hate that Norvell has used these last 3 games were 1-possession games. Miami's was not a 1-possession game. Don't kid yourself. It wasn't. But you have coordinators that are starting to really attack Florida State's deficiencies, and you cannot hide anymore. So I know I'm going back and forth here. What's the silver lining? Are we going to continue to go back to the 23 season and huff that copium for a while? Or is it the Alabama game? Is it the fact that there is still time left to save this season, as low percentage of a chance as we all think that is? What's the silver lining?
Yeah, I mean, I get it. I have to start with the foundation of I hear from enough fans, and I can see what's on Twitter and on message boards, and I can understand and admit nobody thought this team was going to be 3-3 after what the Kent State blowout. I mean, you thought there could be some fool's gold coming out of those East Texas A&M Kent State wins, but I think we felt Virginia could be a trap game, but I don't think we expected Florida State to necessarily lose to Virginia and Miami and Pitt, right? We didn't see that kind of snowball. I'm not sure anybody really did.
No.
So if you're looking for positivity, the only things I can throw out there, just to bullet point them, I think we see a run game that is really the offense. It's the oxygen of the offense. If you don't fumble, this offense can run the football. But you need to get Deuce Robinson back. You need to get Randy Pittman back as blockers. That is who you are. That is the Gus Malzahn offense. You can run the ball. I would argue the receiving group is getting better. We're not talking about drops this year, right? If you want to talk about one position group in particular, it's made a massive step forward. And I know they're shorthanded, and we can say, well, what about this guy or that guy? The last year discussion versus the this year discussion at wide receiver is very different. I think the offensive line, given the injury to Micah Pettis, Jacob Rizzi wasn't a major issue. He wasn't a negative, and I don't think he was a huge positive on Saturday. He graded fine, but I mean, the offensive line is not really an issue. The quarterback play, I think mostly he's limited. To use the Mark Salva line, he's an athlete playing quarterback. He's limited.
He was also hurt.
He's also hurt. And I think people are going to get tired of Gus Malzahn saying he's showing his guts and all that, but I think that's code. That's a head coach / OC type saying my quarterback's given everything I've got. Now, the defensive discussion is totally different. I took the easy discussion with the offense, right? And the special teams discussion kind of sucks too because of the punt block. And I know Pitt didn't capitalize on it, but you can't have that protection issue and then put your defense in a bad spot. And the fumble from Keziah Holmes, it sucks the momentum out of your offense. It puts your defense in a spot where they're going, oh no, we got to go out there again. We gotta try and make a stop. Let's see if we can. There wasn't enough positivity, I don't think, in that moment for the defense to get that stop. If I'm looking at positivity, I got to look at the caliber of the opponents ahead on the schedule too, right? I got to say Stanford's not very good. Wake's not very good. Virginia Tech's got an interim head coach. I kind of fear NC State on a Friday still just because of the old ghosts of Raleigh past.
Yep.
And Florida's going to be tough and Clemson's going to be tough. But if you can get enough wins, squeeze enough wins out of that down the stretch, regardless of how you feel about Mike Norvell or Derek Ray or this player or that player, I think if you're a fan, you just want to see some wins. You just want to have some fun, see a competitive team, and just max out what this year can be. Again, you can't go out and change very much of anything. I think you kind of mentioned JP earlier. Okay, you can run Zach Arnett out there as the linebacker coach if you want to demote JP to an analyst. Like, if you want to think about changes you can make, Zach Arnett played linebacker in college. He's been a defensive coordinator. There are little things you can do, but you can't change a whole lot of who you are at this point.
I don't think Zach Arnett is going to be able to tell Blake Nicholson to not follow the spy to the left side of the hash on their own 1 yard line. I mean, that is just, I don't want to be insulting towards these players, but at some point there is a level of football IQ that you just need to have. It's 3rd and 6, Pitt's on what? The 3 yard line, maybe even less. If Blake just keeps, and I'm struggling with the quarterback's last name off the top of my head. I know roughly what it is. Mason Heinschel.
Mason.
You keep him in front of you, that's probably not a first down. But because Blake is reacting purely on instinct almost and not in terms of what the football IQ tells you to do, he crashes to the left side. He gets caught up on his defensive end, and you have a quarterback that runs, I think, over a 5-second 40-yard dash, trotting up the field for a first down. Now that drive got stalled eventually, but it's those types of plays that you look at and say, I don't know necessarily that it's JP's fault. I know that he has coached linebackers before, and he was kept on the staff moving over from defensive end, but I don't think Zach Arnett's going to be solving that. I just don't think that these players get it. It harkens back to something that was said last year, and I can't remember exactly who said it, and I don't remember exactly who told me this. But there was one of the problems that this coaching staff had last year is they would tell guys something repeatedly. They would instruct them to do it repeatedly, and it just was not clicking. For one reason or another, they were not getting it. And at some point, it has to be on the player to, like, you can literally wheel out the wheelbarrow with different tactics, methods, whatever you want to do to be able to try to instruct these players. If we have Blake Nicholson and Omar Graham not using their eyes, or frankly, not using their brains and understanding what is the most optimal play for me to do here, as opposed to playing purely reactionary football, you can't just turn, like, there are certain situations where you can turn your brain off and go play physical, go play fast, whatever. That wasn't one of them. Like, stick to what you know the right play is. Like, and that's where I believe Tony when I say they're overthinking to a certain degree. Anyways, my point being, I don't think that there is no coach on this planet that is going to be able to fix or I shouldn't say that. I don't think there's a coach on this planet that's going to be able to come into the situation hypothetically. Of course, you're not coming into a situation mid-season that's going to be able to fix these mistakes that we have been seeing repeatedly for now in some cases 3 years.
And I think, let's be candid, right? Blake Nicholson may not be on the roster next year because Florida State takes a long look at the linebacker room, and it might be Omar Graham, and it might be whoever. That might be Martin Mayhew's job. That might be whatever NFL GM type comes in here and says to Mike Norvell, you can't win with that guy.
Should be the second coming of Jesus Christ if he gets on the field eventually. He's the only linebacker that we haven't seen yet this season because, sorry to interrupt you, of course, Bob. He's the only linebacker that we haven't seen this season, apart from some of the younger redshirt freshmen like a Jaden Parrish and of the like. And of course, Ethan Pritchard has been sidelined, which hey, you want to talk about happiness and silver linings? Congratulations to Ethan and his family, and incredibly inspiring to see him and the progress that he's made. It's truly a blessing and a miracle. Now back to your regularly scheduled rant and programming. And now I completely lost. Oh, the you are running out AJ Cottrell out there. You have exhausted every single linebacker that you have had at your disposal apart from Caleb. And maybe he is the right juice that linebacker room needs. But it's hard to see anything better coming of it. And I have a feeling that their offensive coordinators are going to continue to just rip that position group apart, Bob.
Yeah, and I shouldn't take credit for this, but I think a lot of people are of the theory now that you bulk up a safety and make him that kind of hybrid safety linebacker type, because you're going to get eaten up over the middle by, look, Desmond Reed is a really good football player. He's from Miami. He's 5'8", and you can size him up. That's a good football player. You're going to find that certain teams have those type of players who a linebacker cannot cover. Let's just be very, very honest. So I don't know if do you use an Ashland Barker in a little bit more of a not safety but a linebacker type role? Do you take a long look at your personnel and say, well, maybe that guy, if we give him the bye week, if we give him a little bit of time, can we put him in certain roles? Again, there's no waiver wire, there's no trade deadline, there aren't that many options. But you have to look at the personnel you've got and figure out how to win the games that are on the schedule ahead of you. Long term, like, I think there are certain players on this roster who can play football at other schools at a very high level and have fun playing it. But if it's not working out at Florida State, that's an off-season discussion. That's a December discussion for Florida State's coaches and players. As you're preparing for a bowl game, you may have to have a lot of those discussions with guys and say, hey, that portal's going to open up in January. That's your window. We're happy to have you practice. We're happy to have you play in this bowl game. But it's just not, you're not in our future for 2026. That's okay to have those discussions. It really is. But you need to open up the roster, open up the checkbook, really, to find the guys or to reward the Jaden Parrish. Maybe this is an opportunity for a Jaden Parrish to get some more playing time. And I'm not saying he's going to cover the wheel route or the Desmond Reed better, but you need to start finding out who's available on your roster. Is he an option or not?
Yeah. I think what I'm going to see or want to see first, and obviously wins are going to be the number one thing, but I want to see what Tony does this week defensively. Because I think I've made my position really, really clear on this over the course of this show, is I don't think it's necessarily Tony. I do if there is blame to be put on Tony, I think there is blame to be put on him in the sense that this is the biggest position that he has held in his career as a coach. There are different standards, different expectations, and sometimes you just need to learn how to tap into something at a place that you've never been before, at a level that you've never been before. I do like Tony, and I like him a lot. If there's any blame to be placed, that's where it's placed. But I do want to see how this defense plays against Stanford on Saturday. And I want to see if the corrections that he makes actually allows them to get through and if there is noticeable improvement on the defensive side of the football. Now, the catch-22 of this is when you kind of go back to, I think Adam Fuller said something extremely similar last year about dumbing down the defense and just going and playing ball. There is also a possibility that they try to dumb things back and this defense looks almost as much out of whack as it did this past weekend against Pitt. So there's the possibility of both, but I am interested to see you go up there. You're going to be jet lagged. You're going to be tired. It's going to be late at night. It's going to be a game against an opponent that you don't see normally. You're expected to win. Can you tap back into some of the performances that you had earlier this year against teams that you're supposed to beat and are less of a toss up? I want to see them go out and play with aggression and physicality. I want to see them be fast. And preferably, I don't want to see specific players out there in certain packages. When they go out to LA on Saturday, what is something that you're going to be looking for?
I'm with you. Bring the juice. I mean, truly, you have to create your own enthusiasm. It's almost like that whole you're playing in an empty gym, in an empty stadium type of deal.
Sure.
You have to bring it. I think we've talked about aggression and intensity, not really caring who your opponent is. Don't size up your opponent by what's on their game film or their helmet. play it like this is a rivalry game and you need to go out there and be the aggressor and kick tail from start to finish. I don't want to be a flippant. I wanted to give that answer to then give the flippant answer, which is I want to be able to text Jerry Cutts, who's going to the game. I want to be able to text Jerry, tell me that Randy Pittman and Deuce Robinson are warming up and are a go. Because I feel like if you have your dudes available on offense, you can run the ball. Tommy Castellanos has his guys that he can throw to. I want to know that you've got enough of your arsenal at your disposal to go do the job that you need to do. On the defensive side, I'm with you. Like, if they can simplify a few things and just be better on third down. I think Tony White talked a lot about that Sunday night too. They were bad on third down. I think there was like 3rd and 11, a 3rd and 14, a 3rd and 16. There were the fourth downs, the 3 fourth downs on that first drive too. I think we kind of forget about it because we have a third down discussion, but really Mike Norvell calls it a money down discussion because 3rd and 4th are very much in a similar discussion as a head coach and as a play caller. I think Florida State's got to be better in those situations. But go back to it. If you bring the juice, and if you got the dudes on offense, I think this could be a really fun game for Florida State to get the mojo back.
Closing remarks from you, I suppose, in terms of where you sit with this current situation. I've seen a lot of people also suggesting that maybe Michael Alford should go too, considering how this has gone. I think there's a lot of resentment that is held there for giving Mike this contract that has now pigeonholed Florida State, for lack of a better term, into the situation that we find ourselves in. And I do think that the threat of Alabama hiring Mike was very real. We heard it was very real, and it was very close to happening before they ultimately went with the board. Now, how much of that is smoke and mirrors? How much of that is Jimmy Sexton talking up multiple clients into paydays? No, I doubt that we will ever be truly sure about it. I think that there are going to have to be tough conversations, but I think when you take a look at what Alfred has done, not only for the baseball program, I think Link Jarrett was the correct hire. That ultimately, I think that Link is in a great spot. I don't know how thrilled he is with the lack of money that he currently has, but that's another story for another day. And then you have another hire in Luke Laux, which that appears to be the correct hire as well. There are a bunch of really good hires on Alfred's resume: Penske, Jarrett, Laux. It's just the big one, Brooke Wyckoff.
Yeah.
It's just the big one that's a struggle. It's just the big one that's a struggle. And it sucks because this is your moneymaker. It kind of has to be. You're dumping resources even from other sports into this, from soccer, from softball, from basketball. Who knows how well-funded lacrosse is, right? Like, now you're starting to get into that. Like where are you sitting? Like, big picture, final remarks in terms of the financial situation. Does Alford need to go too? I'm kind of just throwing a lot at you. Where are you sitting with this?
Yeah, there are criticisms if you want to have as a Florida State fan of Michael Alford, and if you lost your seats where you wanted them to be in Doak Campbell Stadium and you don't like Michael Alford, I think I can understand that point of view.
He did win a lawsuit.
He won a lawsuit. He poured $5 million into going to war with the ACC to find out that it was a $75 million price tag. That was a huge win. The Doak renovation's a win. Getting that football operations building is a big win. It comes at a huge expense. The debt moving forward, it's a 30-year bond issue. That's a lot. I mean, 30 years from now, guys, I think that's still 2055 if my arithmetic is okay. So yeah, there's a lot there. Now, you are judged by your football success. You are also judged by success initiatives, by your ratings on TV. I do see that comment. Alfred didn't hire Norvell. I know, you're right. But you are judged by retaining Norvell and supporting him financially. I think, look, all these games, all these ratings for Florida State this year, taking out Kent State and East Texas A&M, the ratings have been phenomenal. When it comes time for that revenue distribution, it's going to Florida State because the ratings have been great, win or lose. Bama was great. Virginia was the best Friday night game, except for a Black Friday, of all time in ESPN, okay? The Miami game ratings were fantastic. Again, it didn't play out on the field the way you wanted to, There's money there based on football success from a rating standpoint. Now it's get to that point on the football field where you win and you eventually get to the ACC title game. Whether that's 26 remains to be seen. Could be 27 beyond. You can't afford to be bad at football in this conference, period, right? And that's where the criticism of Norvell goes, and I get that. But at this point, it's pay him $53 million and don't have the money to buy players, or ride with what you got, go get good players in the offseason, get a great GM to help out, and let's see how this program can bounce back. I can see the criticisms, and I know I'm probably coming off too optimistic, but I'm also playing the cards, the hand that I'm looking at right now. And I feel like the hand is, let's play this thing out. Let's see how it goes. And if, Nick, if we're talking after the Florida game and Florida State is 4-8, this is a crazy discussion, right? I mean, we're having it hot and heavy, even more than today. But if they pull off a Clemson, if they pull off a Florida, if they're bowl eligible, if things turn a corner, and Michael Alford and Mike Norvell are aligned and say financially, this is what we need to do. Let's go all in on the GM, on the front office staff. There's a roadmap to better days ahead. And it's sunny right now on a Monday. It wasn't sunny for a lot of people on Saturday and Sunday. I get it. 100% get it. But this is just what I'm reading from the cards right now.
Yeah. And Alfred didn't hire Norvell. I said that a little bit poorly in terms of the big decision making. I really was specifically talking about the decision to give him the contract, and that's, you want to technically consider that a hire, even because you're basically rehiring, you're extending.
It's retention.
And you're also extending and giving contract extensions to coordinators and Alex Atkins, or former coordinators and Alex Atkins and Adam Fuller and all the rest of the folks on the staff. I think if I'm parking my bus in a particular camp, I do think that I don't think you're financially in a position to fire him this year until things go really truly that bad. 6-6 at worst needs to be where you are, and you're definitely not going to be happy about 6-6. Honestly, you're going to want to throw your TV off a balcony at 6-6, but financially, you just can't do it. You want to invest the money in getting better players, and I think the change and the hope, and really your last gasp of breath in terms of fighting before death in terms of this tenure, is, okay, you better hope that the coaches that you've hired, Tony White, Gus Malzahn, Evan Cooper, Terrence Knighton, some of those, Herb Hand, Tim Harris, the guys that you have brought in, you hope that their evaluations are better in terms of bringing in portal talent, but also making sure that they have hit on their high school evaluations. The evaluations are the problem in terms of recruiting and player development. The players haven't been developed as much as they should have. I think everybody will agree with that, especially some of the guys that came in that 2023 class. Again, referencing that column I wrote last week, it's getting to be an uncomfortable conversation. You have to hope that the evaluations are better from this past class, which it does look like they are, and this upcoming class. That is the way that that is one potential way that you can just get out of this, other than winning, to where you have exciting young players that can come in and provide a little bit of a spark to your program. That's kind of all that you've got at this point. Because if it remains like this, where you're in limbo for the remaining of time, this is going to be what I referenced in the very first thing that I said at the very beginning of the show. This is going to be a slow, long, and painful death that is going to be like pulling teeth until you have no choice but to pay this man $50 whatever million it is not to coach for you, plus the buyout of a new coach, plus running that coach through a ringer of a 2026 schedule. And even who's out there, Signetti, possibly linked to Penn State. Matt Rule, possibly linked to Penn State. Fran Brown, Syracuse, isn't looking great right now. I think he's a good coach, but I don't think that roster is flush with talent, and they're playing without their starting quarterback. You go get Dion? I definitely don't want that. But we have people wanting Jimbo Fisher back. That is how desperate we are getting for a coach that at least instills confidence in us that we are going in the right direction. It's insane to think about. And I don't know if things are ever going to slow down. Like, I feel like this is going to continue to ramp up tension until there is the release of wins or a firing. That's where we are, Bob.
I think this could be, let's look at it nationally from the landscape too. This could be a bad year to be in the market for a head coach just because Jimmy Sexton's going to get you.
Yes.
Now, we know the openings that are open, right? We don't have to list them. Penn State just happened. Auburn could happen. They just lost their third straight game.
Happen.
Florida could happen. Arkansas is already open, and Arkansas has got some big money, like billionaire with a B money. Penn State's going to pay somebody. Like you just said, it could be Signetti or Rule or whoever. I don't know what UCLA is going to do. I don't tend to worry as much about that type of job or Stanford. But Stanford just got a $50 million gift from a philanthropist for something. They'd like to spend that on players. And can you imagine a coach interviewing for a job and Andrew Luck can say, we have $50 million. It's just been, given to us. That money's available to you in part to go get some good players and make Stanford football good again. This is a bad year to be going up against Jimmy Sexton and all these other schools for let's just call it what is a very
fabled
small
Sweet
pool.
16 matchup.
But I mean, how many guys who could be available as head coaches, whether you want the hot G5 name, the hot coordinator name, the Signetti or Rule, there aren't enough of them out there because all the other schools are going to want them. They're going to overpay for them. It's just a tough landscape around college football right now. But I know in my rationale of all this argument, it's Florida State turns things around and administration and the coaches and the players back Mike Norvell. It's a lot of ifs. It's a lot of ifs right now, especially when you're trying to find positivity after 3 losses.
Well, a lot of ifs. There is one certainty, and that certainty is that this game against Stanford on Saturday is a must-win. It is perhaps the tenure-defining game. You thought last week was tenure-defining. Exactly. This week is the one. You cannot lose to Stanford under any circumstances, or you will not be let back on that plane home. I would have to imagine. And I never in my wildest dreams thought that the Stanford University Cardinals would have the chance to shake up a Florida State coach or coaching situation. But here we are. This is going to be fascinating to watch unfold over the next week and over the next however many weeks are left in the season. 6. We're at the halfway point, aren't we? We are just about there. Maybe just less, which is, I feel like we've gone through 2 seasons in 6 weeks. It's insane. It's not for the weak of heart. It's not. And that's as mostly unbiased reporters that have been doing this for many, many years. It's not for the weak of heart. Huge game against Stanford on Saturday. My name is Nick Carlisle. That's head editor Bob Ferrante. Thank you so much for watching this edition of Seminole Sidelines. Tom Block and Keith Jones and Bob will be back on Wednesday with Front Row Knowles as always, so stay tuned for that. The usual time, 3 p.m. You can see the scroll at the bottom of your screen right now. 31% off, and you get a $25 gift card to the Osceola's branded merchandise store. A great deal that you definitely want to take into consideration. Of course, that is with an annual subscription to the Osceola. It is really, truly going to be fascinating to see how this unfolds. Thank you all so much for watching. And tune in to Front Row Knowles on Wednesday. Have a great rest of your Monday.